All right, before we get to the episode, we have a voicemail from Jason. Let's listen to that now.
Hey, Ben. Jason Rogers here, as usual, doing my weekly call in. Just want to say thanks for all you do, and it was great listening to your podcast yesterday between you and your dad. That was really, really good. I always enjoy hearing your dad and some of the older, wiser stories that he brings to the show. That's really neat. Huge history buff myself, but anyway, just want to give you my score prediction this week, and also I have a question. So my question first is, when we accept portal transfers in or grad transfers or whatever, what do those players do that have already graduated from a college? They're just coming here to extend their playing careers. Do they go for another major? Do they go for a minor? Do they, just what is their courses like as they attend Duke or other schools? But that's my question. My wife asked me that this week, and I said, I'm gonna propose that to the Bull City coordinator. But anyway, my score prediction is going to be a tight one, boys. It's going to be tight. I think it's going to be a very defensive minded game. Again, our scoring is not way up there, but that's all right. I do not mind. We are 6-1, and that's all that matters to me, as long as we have more wins than losses. But my score prediction is 21-17, 21-17 Duke. And as always, go Duke.
Jason, thanks again for calling in. It's always great to hear from you. I enjoy more than just your voicemails whenever you call and we talk and catch up and just go over Duke football and run stuff by one another. And the discussion we had Sunday morning was necessary, but it was not quite as hopeful and optimistic as some of our other conversations have been and normally are. To answer your question about transfers, my understanding is the ones that have already graduated will enroll in a master's program. I don't know enough to talk intelligently about what's involved with that, but I know from a very small sample size, that's a challenging academic life, and you've got to really be about it. So that's what they do, generally work on getting a master's program. Now, your score prediction was pretty good, not entirely on point, but you were darn right that it was going to be a close game, and that's exactly what it was. We'll talk more about that in the upcoming episode, but Jason, thanks a lot for calling in, and I hope to see everybody at the next Duke home game. Little scheduling note for me, just so you all understand, I will have to watch the football game on Saturday late. I will be at a wedding, and I'm very excited about it because at my age, there are very few opportunities for me to go to weddings, especially ones that are not people who are getting remarried. So this could be the last one for a while. My younger brother-in-law has one coming up next year, but the opportunities get fewer and fewer, or at least less frequent as you age. So if you don't see me tweeting, that's why. My live thread may be delayed. Sorry about that. So enough with all that nonsense. Let's just go ahead and get to the episode. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Bull City Coordinators Duke Football Coverage Podcast. Check us out at our website, bullcitycoordinators.com. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, but hey, like and subscribe over at our YouTube channel. That's what I'm promoting primarily now. So go check us out over there. Check out the Classical Antiquity Side Quest podcast, which is a podcast that I've set up that covers various topics from time period known as classical antiquity. It's very interesting. I enjoy doing it, and I'm going to keep doing it because, as you know, Classical Antiquity Side Quest is a podcast without end. All right, guys, Duke SMU, it happened. It was a tough loss. Just didn't pull it out. Our special teams did not rise to the occasion. Offense maybe could have done a little bit more, could have been a little bit better, but that was a good team we were playing. And the offense, I think, look, here's my view on how you win football games most of the time. Your defense has to do enough. Our defense did more than enough to win. Your offense has to do enough. The offense did enough, got us in enough position, scored points, made up for a missed point after touchdown attempt with a beautiful, beautiful 2-point conversion to Eli Pankel, which I got a couple of nice shots of. And then your kicking teams, the special teams, that unit also has to do enough to win and just didn't do it. And Connor and I were talking over at Devils Illustrated about this. There is blame to go around as far as offensively. Maybe more could have been done. And I'm not going to dispute that, but I think the three phases, enough was done to get the win in 2 of those. The kicking team just did not rise to the occasion. And that is something, though, that we do need to discuss because the last couple of years, I don't think our unit has been as good as it should be or as good as it could be. And what I would make a suggestion of, as far as what's being done, is bring in somebody who really, really coaches up that technique, really coaches and game plans for it. This name may be hated among the Duke fan base, but Zach Roper had a lot of good special teams when he was a special teams coordinator. And I think we need to find on the staff someone like that who can come in and really run it. And part of what I'm saying here is not that our current special teams coordinator is terrible or we should get rid of him or anything like that. I am not suggesting that, because Gabe Infante also coaches the defensive tackles and checks notes. That group's pretty good. But it could just be that maybe he's, as far as coaches go, still fairly new at this at the college level. And it may just be that this is not what he's well suited to. There was some discussion about this, and just to explain this, he was he'd had a lot of experience in high school coaching from about 97 to 2018. And then from 2019 to the present, he's been in the college coaching ranks. He started out at Temple, then went to Penn State, and is now at Duke. And I think he's doing a great job as the defensive tackles coach. But it may just be that special teams is not what his particular skill set lends itself to. But we know he's a brilliant guy. We know he's a smart guy because he's got a JD from New York Law School. Anybody who's got a legal degree and ties to Duke, that's going to put you up a notch in my book, right? I'm not saying that because I'm biased, but I am. So anyway, that's just something to consider. Just think about that. I say always, and I have for years, that a good kicking unit will win you at least 2 games a year. But a bad one, an inconsistent one, will cost you more than 2 a year. And that was a loss that I gotta look at the kicking team for that. I'm sorry. One thing, though, that came up, the jump over the gap of the one player on Duke's line. There's been some discussion that may or may not have been a penalty. I read the rule book. I looked at it. I don't think it was, because it wasn't the person snapping the ball that there was a jump over. There was no assist from the other player, the defensive players. He didn't run to make the jump. He jumped from a standing or a still position. And the only question I have, though, is if you look at it, one of the defenders for SMU, who was to the right of the guy who jumped, pushed our guy down so he could not come up. I don't think that's a penalty or that's a rule violation, but I'm not so sure about the fairness of that. I think that's something that ought to be looked at, because it's not really that different, if you think about it, than holding or pass interference. It's something that should be looked at and analyzed, but I'm not blaming the officiating for that loss. That's all on the Blue Devils. So could have been 7-1, could have gotten a big win there. 6-2, though, that's no reason to be sad. That's no reason to hang your head. We all knew that this stretch was going to be tough. Georgia Tech, Florida State, SMU, Miami, and that 4-week, including NC State, that 4-week kind of murderer's row schedule. Duke still has a chance to go 3-1 during that time period. depending on what happens with Miami, maybe 2-2. We'll see. This can be a tough game coming up. So what do we do when we have a tough game coming up and we have an important game coming up? Well, we do what we've done a lot this season. As you know, the Bull City Coordinators podcast is part of the College Huddle Network, and we've reached out to another guest, another part of the College Huddle group, and that is Miami Nights, a Cane podcast. And we have Kurt Kramer, who roots for the Hurricanes for some reason, who knows why, but he is going to come on and he is going to educate us about Miami and what the Blue Devils should expect from this former Coastal opponent. So let's get to the interview now. Kurt Kramer, how are you, sir?
Ben, doing well, man. How's everything over there? How you doing?
We're good. We're good here. Thanks for accommodating the recording change. I appreciate that. I had something come up Monday evening, but we're here to talk about Duke Miami with implications for the college football playoff and the ACC championship game, just like we all expected at the beginning of the year, right?
Right. I think I mean, our expectations were high, but I think, coming into the season we thought we've been disappointed plenty of times before, and I don't know that we quite believe that we'd be here at this point, but it's been fun, man. I mean, it's been great start to the season so far.
Well, what are your thoughts here about the Blue Devils coming to Miami to take you guys on? And let's start first with your thoughts on the Hurricanes and where that team is right now.
Sure, yeah. I mean, obviously, Manny Diaz is a guy that we know pretty well. He defensive coordinator for us, and then ultimately became the head coach. And I think going into the season, I wouldn't have expected to see you guys come into the game um, already having clinched a bowl game and with some momentum here. I mean, that was a scare that you guys put into SMU. Certainly felt like you guys could have and maybe should have won that ball game. And SMU has been very impressive so far. Another guy that we know, Rhett Lashley, over there, and I think the Canes, like I said, we had high hopes coming into the season. Getting Cam Ward was number one on our priority this summer, and it ultimately he ended up coming down to Miami. But I think for a while there, obviously, it looked like he was going to go pro, and I don't know that we knew what we were going to do with the quarterback situation. But it's just been evident to me so far this season that Mario's culture and what he has been saying that he was going to do, what the way that he wanted to build this team, it's really popped this season. And I think it starts at the line of scrimmage, and the offensive and defensive lines have just been so good and have really open things up for our playmakers on the offensive side and for some of the athleticism we have on the defensive side. So I think it all starts in the trenches, but it's been very impressive to see so far.
Well, let's do this. Other than Cam Ward, who I've been big on before the season, and I've been big on since last season after having had a chance to, for some reason, last year I just ended up seeing a lot of Pac-12 games. I don't know why, but I did on TV, and I've been big on that guy. And we all know he can elevate a program, he can elevate a team. I have thoughts on Cristobal's coaching ability that I have discussed previously, so I won't get into it now. But I think he can elevate other shortcomings and other problem areas or areas of concern, whatever terminology you want to use. But it's not just Cam Ward. Who are the other guys that the Blue Devils fans and Duke Nation should know about and be concerned about come Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, Damian Martinez, our running back, has really come on strong in the past few weeks. We've talked on our pod actually about he had kind of a slow start to the season, and I think I didn't watch a ton of Pac-12 last year. I don't have the luxury of staying up late on Saturday nights too often unless
Preach.
the Canes are on, So uh I saw a little bit of Damian Martinez, but his hype coming out of the portal was that he was the number one running back and one of the top offensive players in the transfer portal, kind of aside from Cam Ward. And at the beginning of the year, I didn't get it. Like he had around 1,500 rushing yards last year, and I didn't see a guy that was explosive. He was patient, and it was like, is this guy Le'Veon Bell? And but it just didn't pop. And he started to make some plays in the passing game, and he's been a really an asset with his pass blocking out of the shotgun. But in these past 2 weeks, I mean, he's exploded for us, and he gives us easiest way to describe him to me is like a workhorse guy who, as the game goes on, he's tough to tackle. He's just a strong guy. It doesn't look like he's moving fast, but his center of gravity is makes him really tough to bring down, and he's had some really physical runs in the second halves of games against Louisville and Florida State. And it's the running game. At the beginning of the season, it felt like the passing game was setting up the running game, and that was something that I didn't expect. With a good offensive line and a good running back, we have a stable of guys who are solid, and it's kind of developed itself into a physical rushing attack, and that's only going to be a positive for when you have a guy like Cam Ward, right? I mean, if we can start to run the ball and start to establish the run on first and second down and short yardage, picking up first downs and wearing on teams. We saw in the second half, we started to wear Louisville down, and Florida State was just, they couldn't stop us. They couldn't stop the rushing attack. Martinez ran for almost 10 yards a carry. And so I think Damian Martinez has been huge, man. Obviously, Xavier Restrepo is he's climbing up the charts as far as he's a historical receiver at the University of Miami, which so many names he's passing in that list. He's guys like Reggie Wayne and Michael Irvin and Lamar Thomas. It's Florida State did a great job last week, but he's obviously one of our playmakers as well. But we go deep in the running back room, and I think that's been big for us.
Let's talk a little bit about matchups here. What are you worried about from the Blue Devils? What are you worried about that Duke might be able to do come Saturday?
Yeah, I think Duke and Florida State have some similarities in the sense of defense is the strong point. I was actually impressed with Florida State's secondary. I thought they did some things really well. They didn't certainly didn't make it easy for us to create separation, and that's ultimately my concern that has been with the offense is that the receivers are athletic, and I like our speed and athleticism on the outside, but physicality is something we lack. We lost Colby Young to Georgia. He was our physical receiver last year, big guy who caught some jump balls. And I love Isaiah Horton, but Sam Brown and George, they struggle against physical defensive backs. And I think I see, you guys are pretty strong in the secondary, in my opinion. I think that's probably the strength of the defense. And I can we got to establish the run. We got to run the ball. I think that could present some problems for us in creating explosive plays on the back end.
Well, let's get a little bit into maybe what we can expect, or maybe I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this. So, one of the things that I like to do when I'm trying to preview a game in my mind, how it might go, is look at trends and look at points of concern.
Mm-hmm.
For Duke, the big concern is the offense, but also I think certainly the kicking teams after its performance on Saturday. And Todd Polino has been a good kicker. This statistically, I think, is his worst year at Duke. The return game's been questionable, and it just hadn't been enough good from that unit this year. Offensively, we saw some improvement against SMU, and it seemed like the team might be on track. Although with Jordan Moore not being 100%, that's going to be a little bit of an issue. That being said, my thought about this game is this was kind of surprising to me. This could be a much more interesting game from a scoring perspective than maybe a lot of people anticipate. And the reason that I say that is going back over the last several games, Miami gave up 34 to Virginia Tech. Could have been 40, controversial last second call. Gave up 38 to California, which has generally struggled to score this year. Gave up 45 to Louisville, but I mean, Louisville is just a well-coached football team. I don't know how much you can really read into that. And then 14 to Florida State. Again, Florida State's been really inconsistent. So I'm trying to put myself in Miami's frame of mind. I would be a little worried about that given how well Duke's defense has played, and that this could turn into a high scoring game, or if not that, a really close nail biter game, which Duke until Saturday had done real well in, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I think, the defense, the Louisville game, as you said, they're a well coached team and they have a good offense. I think coming out of a bye week, it was shocking to me how poor the defense played in that game. I really thought it looked like as we opened ACC play with Virginia Tech, I think that was the start of the concern. I mean, Kyron Drones is certainly a capable quarterback. They haven't been, they've come on strong since then. I would say up to that point, that was their best performance, and I think that was where the concerns began. And the Cal game, I mean, the first half of that game was an abomination, really. I mean, we our defense seems to struggle with their eyes, right? Like Cal was doing things to trick us, and not really things that were too. I didn't find it all that creative, but our secondary struggled in that sense, and it's the we thought we'd clean it up in the bye week. Like I said, it just Louisville was concerning, and it was what's going to happen after that. Are they going to start to improve? We really force our linebackers to tackle in space, and that's ultimately Kiko Mauinoa had started to really struggle with tackling in the open field. Two of his worst games in his college career came back-to-back weeks in ACC play, and he was better last week in pass coverage, but yeah, it has been concerning, and certainly when you play a team with a defense like Duke that is strong, and Manny Diaz is going to be aggressive, that's for sure. It certainly is a concern. Absolutely.
The thing about Cal that's interesting, to side quest detour here a little bit, is that team is 10 points away from being undefeated, which
Right.
is just wild. 1 point to NC State, 2 points to Pittsburgh, 1 point against your Hurricanes, 5 points to Florida State. I mean,
Mhm.
that is the craziest thing, maybe ever stat line I've ever seen. But anyway, let's talk about it a little like this. As a Duke fan, obviously I'm worried about Cam Ward and the offense. Cam Ward is just one of those players. He's a very, very unique player. He's a special player. But I'm just curious, in your mind, what does Miami have to do to win on Saturday? Tell us what a Canes victory would look like in your opinion.
Yeah, I think ultimately we need to continue to protect the football. Mark Fletcher has started to sort of he fumbled and it was quickly recovered last week, and he had the big fumble against Louisville, but otherwise, we've done a really good job of protecting the ball And obviously, that's the key to success, right? We our penalties are a little concerning as well. I'd like to see us clean that up, but I really have a faith and trust in this offense with Cam Ward at quarterback that if we can make stops on defense, if we can limit you guys the rushing attack, and I saw you guys have a nice little receiver who had a great week last week.
Yeah.
We have to be disciplined, and that's ultimately when you talk about penalties and big plays, it comes back to discipline. And I'd like to see Lance Guidry's defense be a little more disciplined. We certainly go deep at defensive line, and that's allowed us to again just kind of keep the attack coming on the assault on the line of scrimmage as the game goes on. And we look strong in the fourth quarter against teams that start to get a little tired. So I think we just need to play our game. I really this offense has been impressive, and I don't want to seem too overconfident or comfortable. I do think Duke presents some challenges, but I think obviously, look, you guys forced SMU into 6 turnovers last week, and if we turn the ball over multiple times, it's going to become really close for comfort. And so ultimately, I think on the offensive side, it's taking care of the football, and on the defensive side, it's staying disciplined.
Well, let's flip the coin there. In your mind, what does a Blue Devil victory look like? What does Duke have to do to come away with the win?
Yeah, I think on the flip side, it's running the ball, keeping it away from our offense. I think you guys ran the ball very well against North Carolina. That was I was impressed. I got to see a lot of that game and was impressed by the rushing game in that one. And look, if you can run the ball and force turnovers, if you can combine the rushing of the North Carolina game and the defense and the turning the ball over from the SMU game, it's going to be it's going to be tough for us to overcome. And again, Manny Diaz, we have seen Manny Diaz defenses. He's so aggressive, and the nights where it clicks and he gets to the quarterback, and you kind of allow the rest of the defense to turn him loose and force turnovers and play fast and physical. That's where he shines. I mean, his defenses at Penn State, he loves to play press man and just get after you. And if the tide starts to turn where he's getting after Cam Ward, any quarterback is going to start to is going to start to feel that pressure and start to force things. I think we've seen it. I mean, he likes to extend plays, right? I mean, he likes to hang on to the ball. He doesn't like to quit on plays. And if you guys can pressure him and force him into some bad decisions, then it's going to be very interesting.
Well, before we get into the predictions of the game itself, one of the things that I'd like to ask you about is what is the ceiling for Miami, and then what is the floor for the Hurricanes this season?
Yeah, obviously sitting here at 8-0, the floor is pretty high, and that's something that at this point in the season is a good feeling. We haven't been here too often, and at this point, we're starting to calculate, what we can do to potentially make it to the ACC championship in the sense of who else is going to lose. And now we're in this spot where we actually don't control our own destiny. But if we went out, we're going to be looking good for the playoff and for that ACC championship game. So ceiling to me is I saw this week that ESPN FPI they have us as the most likely team to make the playoff sitting at this point. And so I would love to win an ACC championship. The stick that we hear it all season long and constantly is that we've never won the conference since we joined it, and I'd like to shed that stigma and do it, and I'd love to get Clemson too, but yeah, I think this is a playoff caliber team. I think the floor is, I mean, at this point with the remaining schedule, gosh, I just couldn't see more than one loss. To be honest, I really couldn't. We get Duke at home, and then Syracuse on the road has always been one that I've had my eye on since the beginning of the season, and they've started to really kind of fall off here as the season's worn on. So we're obviously sitting in a great spot, and I just would like to see us finish this thing strong and see how we stack up against the elites of college football.
Well, I think the Georgia Tech game, though, definitely is still one that you've got to be worried about because I tell you, man, that that program under Brent Key is going to be physical. They're going to be tough. They're going to run the football, and they're going to be in a position to have a chance to win games. They've had injuries at quarterback, so that's not been good. But that's one that I think definitely there'd have to be some concerns about. So things are looking good for Miami right now. So why don't you give us your thoughts on who is going to win on Saturday and why?
Yeah, I feel really confident about the game Saturday. I really do. I think the the narrative, in my opinion, has been a little one-sided with the as far as the Manny Diaz revenge factor in this game. I mean, Mario has been indirectly hinting at the state of this program, maybe not even indirectly, but you know, at the state of the program that he inherited for a couple of weeks now, and then obviously it's ramped up this week. And I think that this is a game that he's going to take personal as well. I mean, I think the old coach is coming back, and I think he wants to put on a show in the sense of like, look what I've done to the program I inherited from you in 3 seasons. And obviously, his goal is to win a national championship here again. And I just see a guy who it's very unique to find a head coach nowadays that is really invested in the program and loves the program like the U on the chest. I mean, the guy bleeds orange and green, and you can see every week just how much it means to him. And I don't think he's going to be too fond of Manny Diaz coming back into his house and looking to prove something to us, especially with the how this season has gone so far. And so, for me, I think the rushing attack coming along here and being able to have this physical run game is just going to go a long way in tying things together here and complementing Cam Ward. And my prediction for this game is 37-17 Miami. It's right on that line of what the spread is right now. But I think the Canes are going to keep it rolling here.
Yeah, I think I picked Miami in my preseason, and I'm going to stick with that because of Cam Ward. I mean, I'm not going to shy away from my opinions on it. I just don't think highly of Cristobal as a coach. I think he's an excellent recruiter. And when I say I don't think highly of him as a coach, I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but what I'm saying is if you were going to put him up against a guy like Barry Alvarez, who was one of the best in-game coaches ever, I'd go with Barry Alvarez, for example. Um,
Have
I
you been
just
impressed at all at what you've seen this season? Like, do you feel like it's been a little bit different?
well here is where I've been on that is Cam Ward is just so good. Um, it's hard for me to completely change my opinion on that.
Mhm.
But if, for example, next year without Cam Ward, he's still doing what they're doing this year. I mean, not undefeated, but hovering around 9 or 10 wins, then I think my opinion will change. Uh, I just am not in a position to do that yet. The other thing that I think you'd have to be a little concerned about, not this week, because I'm gonna stay with Miami to win this game, but not this week, but perhaps in either the ACC championship game or in a college football playoff. I would be concerned about the I don't want to say Miami's necessarily been playing with its food. I think that's a gross oversimplification, but I hate to make this comparison. Last year, Florida State had a lot of games that were closer than probably they should have been, just looking at them on paper. And Florida State pulled them out and won, in large part because they had such a good quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But the bowl games, it's a little hard to read too much into, but ultimately that kind of has come back around to the Seminoles. So what I'd be concerned about is going up against a coach like Dabo, or potentially a coach like Lashley at SMU. I'm not sold on Cristobal yet. Now this could be the year where I completely change my opinion on him. It's certainly possible, and I'm not going to run from that. But I try to go with the evidence I have at the time until the evidence forces me, or there's some new facts that force me to change my opinions. It's generally worked for me with my Duke predictions this year, because I keep saying I think it's going to come down to the last play of the game or whoever has the ball last, and that's been right. So we'll see, but I do think Miami comes out of this one with a win. I think it's probably going to be closer for a good chunk of the game than maybe the final score will indicate. But I think Miami gets the win. Now, and I don't want to say if Duke was fully healthy, because everybody's got injuries. I'm trying to think of what could move me off that prediction line, and I just there's nothing right now that would make me think that. Now, heck, maybe the lights have come on for Malik Murphy. Maybe he's finally hit his stride and he feels comfortable and he knows where to go with the ball at all times. Maybe that happens, and so it's a much tighter game than what we think going into it. But I'm not in a position to make that determination as of right now.
I mean, what are your feelings on Malik Murphy so far? I mean, are you impressed? Do you see improvement? Do you see a guy who's going to continue to kind of climb?
I think so. After last week against SMU, he really played a lot better. He looked more comfortable. He moved around in the pocket. He ran once. And if he gets to where he can start extending a play by moving around or stepping up, that's going to be a very different Blue Devil team. I would like to see him under center as opposed to in the shotgun, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I'll tell you, if he rips off, because he's going to be open on an RPO, and if he just keeps it and rips off a 30, 40-yard run, that could completely change the season and certainly change the game, because nobody's seen it. But I think he played a lot better last week. But I think the big thing, though, is this defense is going to keep Duke in the game and give them a chance to win. Now, they're not going to have 6 turnovers. I don't think you're going to do that 2 weeks in a row. But that linebacking core, Ozzie Nicholas, Trey Freeman, and you got Kendi Charles on the defensive line. We've got some ends who are really good. There are plenty of people on defense who I don't want to say are going to give Miami fits, but are going to be competitive and are going to make Miami earn every single yard on every single play. So I think it'll be close. Duke will make a run at some point like the Blue Devils do, but with a guy like Cam Ward, I just can't bet against him, man. I just can't do it.
He's been so strong. I mean, we've talked, like it's kind of been that scar tissue that we've had where where we've seen Tyler Van Dyke play well, and we've seen Brad Kaya flash, and kind of even Kosi Perry, seen him flash before, and I feel like it's taken 8 weeks to really cement that feeling of this guy is unbelievable. Just, I mean, he's so transcendent. He's one of the most talented quarterbacks that we've ever had, and it's unbelievable to think that we got this guy and what he's done to elevate the program and the expectation, and it's just been unbelievable. I've been so impressed by his mind. I mean, you see the flashy plays and stuff from Washington State, sure, but the guy at the line of scrimmage, in pre-snap is just so sharp, and it just gives the fan base, you have such a sense of confidence going into games when that position is that strong. Right.
No, he's a guy that can make you win every game and give you a chance to win every game. And getting him is a huge deal. Having him on your team is a huge deal, and that's one of the great things about having Cristobal is he can go get guys like that other coaches may not be able to recruit, and that's going to win you games. So I think betting against Cam Ward and betting against Miami until the evidence to the contrary develops might be a mistake. So that's what I'm going to say. But tell us a little bit. Where can we tell us a little bit about your podcast, a little bit about what you guys do, and where we can keep up with you on social media?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Miami Nights podcast. We shoot on Sundays and release our podcast wherever you get your pod. It's three high school buddies who love the Canes, and Joe and Jimmy have been in the podcast space for a couple of years now, and asked me to join this year, and it's been a blast, man. It's obviously when it coincides with a team that's starting to take off, it makes it so much more enjoyable. But yeah, definitely come check us out. It's Miami Nights Pod on Twitter or X, still call it
Twitter.
Twitter over there. Yeah. Um, so yeah, Sunday nights, and it's a good time, man. We're enjoying the ride so far for sure.
Now, how long have you guys been at it? How long have you been podcasting? I know you just joined recently, but the entire project.
Yeah, this is the third season for Joe and Jimmy, and yeah, it's we've been close friends since high school. We've been going to the games. I've got my 2 season tickets for the Canes, and in seats 6 and 7, and then seats 1 through 5 is Joe and Jimmy and their parents have those. So we've been going to games for a while now, and we're I guess we're sort of stereotypical Canes fans. I went to school at Auburn actually, and Jimmy and Joe went to UCF, so we avoided that no in-state tuition at the U. We're from Orlando, and um, but been Canes fans our entire lives. So I describe it to people like the Canes are my professional team, and Auburn is like my college team, if you will.
Well, yeah, that there is a commentary on Auburn's relative performance compared to other schools in Alabama that we could make, but we don't need to digress into
That's
that.
right.
Somebody explained to me once the difference between the Alabamas and Auburns are the offensive linemen that each school has, and I think there might be some truth to that. But
Yeah.
be that as it may, I really appreciate you coming on, being part of the College Huddle, and doing these interviews. This is a blast, folks. We're not doing a check-in with Rich Landia this week. Just really hectic kind of a week. Had a lot going on early, so I didn't have time to make sure that he called in. But remember, he took the blame for the SMU loss. That's on him. He'll own it. And continue to follow us on our website, bullcitycoordinators.com. Send us an email, bullcitycoordinators@gmail.com. We are everywhere you get your podcast. Check out the YouTube channel. And of course, listen to the Classical Antiquity Side Quest, which is this show's antiquity themed companion podcast. All right. And Send us a message on Twitter. Our DMs are open. Call the pod, and you can leave a voicemail, and you guys know that we will air it. We listen to a voicemail at the beginning, and we will hopefully get more voicemails and keep that part of the podcast up. It's 540-632-0160. That is the number to call. Big game on Saturday, noon against Miami. Again, because of a wedding, I will miss the game. I will not be able to watch it in real time. Do not message me unless Duke wins. Then message me nonstop. Just kidding. I will watch it. I'll do a delayed game thread. You guys know me. I've done it before. I'll do it again. So let's all say it together. As always, go Duke.